Put any group of Rangers fans together and the chances are that eventually the conversation will get round to the greatest ever. The greatest players, goals, matches, achievements. The beauty of these discussions, of course, is that no one is ever wrong. We all have our own opinions about the greatest of them all. Talking of which, wee Willie Henderson, a Rangers legend in the 60s, would be in most fans' list of the best wingers ever to play for the club. He made his debut for Rangers and for Scotland as an 18-year-old and went on to play more than 400 matches for the club, scoring over 60 goals. But his own favourite came in a Scottish Cup quarter-final against Celtic in March 1964.
I picked the ball up 10 yards inside my own half and I went on a mazy run and I beat 3 Celtic players, the linesman, and then knocked it right into the top corner with my left peg.
Well, Rangers have beaten Celtic 4 times already this season. Gregg on to Forrest. Henderson of Rangers. And a goal! Goal by Henderson. Look at the wee flag. Well, that's one right out of the bag.
After I had scored the goal, I made a little mistake and I ran towards the Celtic end with my hands in the air. And I was actually accused of inciting a riot, possibly inciting a riot. But I just got mixed up with what end I was at, and I was really waving to my father. But as I was going back to the halfway line, one of the Celtic players actually called me a piece of fruit. It's an insinuation at the end of it that I had no mother and father. Quite funny. And there was always a great rivalry between the players. But there was a friendliness involved as well. And I think it was a good sign that the likes of Tommy Gemmell and myself, who were great rivals on the field, could always go for a pint after the game and talk about it. And even to this day, I'm still friendly with Tommy and Jimmy Johnson as well. So they were great games to play in. I'll never forget them.
Neither will Davy Wilson, another high on the list of the greatest Rangers wingers. Davy was also a prolific goal scorer in that outstanding Ibrox side of the early 60s.
We were a very good team. Scott Simon, who was a manager at that time, let us play our own way. He never ever told us we should do this or we should do that. He just asked us to go out and give our best. But we thought a lot about the game in these days, and we talked a lot about it. And with players like Jimmy Baxter, Ralphie Brand, Jimmy Miller, Willie Henderson, we couldn't go wrong. Class. There was class right through the side.
In 1963, Rangers retained the Scottish Cup they had won 12 months previously by beating St Mirren. They totally outclassed Celtic in a 3-0 replay win. But Davy Wilson's memories of the 1-1 draw first time round aren't happy ones.
I don't want to remember it because I should have finished it in the last 5 minutes. I had a real good chance.
On to Miller. Miller to Henderson. Henderson. And that's Wilson who put it over the bar.
There were massive crowds in these days. And a game like that, Rangers-Celtic, you had to take your chances. And I felt that I had let the Rangers support down in that one each game.
But it was a totally different story in the replay. Rangers were easy winners in the first Old Firm final for 35 years.
We should have beaten 5 or 6 that day. It finished 3-0 and I scored the second goal, which will always be with me because it was a huge crowd at Hampden that day. And that made up for the one that I had missed in the Saturday.
10 years later, in 1973, the Cup was won thanks to a dramatic late winner from the most unlikely source. Tam Forsyth was one of the most popular players of his era. His unforgettable Cup-winning goal was his first ever for Rangers.
Well, I think to score a goal, first of all, to score a goal in the Cup final is what you dream about as a boy, but to actually do it, I mean, it's just words couldn't describe it, really.
And it's in there. It's there.
I don't usually get what I said. Derek Johnson couldn't believe it was what you doing up there, but I was glad I was at the end of the day.
As a kid, it was just, you're back out in the street straight after it, trying to do the same thing as Tam did. I remember the old Hampden, and it was the ash track right round, and we were in the north enclosure, and when the third went in, you're actually jumping onto the track, and that memory as a kid is probably the biggest part, that we actually jumped onto the track just off the pitch, and something like that stays with you even now. Crazy when you think about it.
Like Tam Forsyth, John Brown occupies a special place in Rangers fans' hearts. The fan who had celebrated in 1973 scored his goal to remember 19 years later.
Alstra on the left, McCoy's in inside right position. Here's Brown going all the way himself. That settles it! John Brown ends the match in a contest with that rifling left-foot shot.
My ambition was the goals to be directly at the jungle, so when I scored I could actually jump into the jungle, but I was happy to get a goal, and be it, albeit it's at the Rangers' end, just to go towards the fans. I think if you ask any player, Ali McCoy, when they score, the buzz you get, I didn't score that many, but when I did, for about 5 seconds after it, you don't really realise what you're doing. You know, you're in such a high. To do that day, New Year's Day, was a bit special. My dad and my brother were up that end, and if you go back to '73 Cup Final, you're with them watching Rangers, and I think when you look at that, and you know, it brings a lump to your throat that there's all these years after that, they're up there, and I was fortunate that had the Rangers jersey on and put the ball in the Celtic net. Then that to me means more than anything, that they're still there, and for all these years that they've supported, that one of their family members has actually managed to do it themselves.
In 1978, Rangers won the treble for the second time in 3 years, with new signing Gordon Smith contributing 26 goals. Gordon has special memories of his first cup final for the club, when he laid on the opening goal.
I start off the move, but I lose possession of it. Ronnie Glavin actually reads what I'm going to do, and then I'm just chasing the ball, and I managed to just get a tackle on the goal line and squeeze the ball back across goal. So I'd made a mess of it, and I was pretty sort of angry with myself. But the thing was, David Cooper picked up on the ball that I laid back and hammered it in the roof of the net, and it was a fantastic feeling, because you see my reaction with Coop. I'm very grateful for him for putting it in the net in the first place, but just to put us one up in the cup final, the 2 new boys at the team and all that sort of thing, because there was a slight amount of pressure on us, because everybody was talking about this was a really good Rangers side now. We had made a difference to add to the good players already had, but we hadn't won anything yet, and that was the first final, my first cup final of playing in, and to lay the ball on, and Davy Cooper was a good pal at the time as well, smashing it into the net. It was a great memory.
But there was even better to come as the final went into extra time.
Johnston to Smith. Miller going now. McDonald was there, and that must be Gordon Smith.
Frank Monroe, the defender, went to clear it. I had to dive, put my head in there. I thought I might get a kick in the face, but I wasn't really bothered at that stage, because it was a chance to score, and got my head in it and put it in the net. And he didn't even quite realise at the time, you know, what you've done, sort of thing. You just think, what's in the net, and it's a goal, and it's only later on it all comes home to you, just because you try to win the match, obviously. But that was, I say, the same game, first cup final, and to score the winning goal in the last minute against Celtic, who nobody better to score against if you're a Rangers player in that sort of environment, was that game. So it's an abiding memory, always stick with me. And that got us up and running, because getting that first trophy under the belt meant that we went on. We were doing well in the league as it was. We were in real competition with Aberdeen, who were the main challengers that season, and we'd knocked them out the League Cup, and that was us. Had won the first trophy. Aberdeen were neck and neck was for the league, and we went on to win the league on the last day, and then got Aberdeen in the final. And you've got to feel sorry for Aberdeen. They challenged for the trophies, but we just pipped them for the other 2.
The treble in 1978 was John Gregg's third as a player. Soon afterwards, the legendary captain succeeded Jock Wallace as Rangers manager. And 6 months later, he masterminded famous European Cup wins over Juventus and PSV Eindhoven. Bobby Russell will never forget that match in Holland.
We went over there after drawing 0-0 at Ibrox. Most people had written us off, having no chance of getting a result over there. And after a minute, I would have agreed with them, because we went 1-0 down. But we showed a wee bit of spirit, a wee bit of character to come back, and it went to 2-2. And that was good enough for us to go through in the away goals. And there was only minutes or seconds to go in the game, and I happened to score the goal to put the icing on the cake. So it was great. It was great to do that. You run into positions and into space, and it's something that you can't really coach. It's just instinct to make the run. It helps when you've got players of Tommy McLean's passing ability as well. But again, going over the goal, the move for the goal, Gordon Smith played the ball across to Tommy. Tommy controlled it and just played an inch-perfect pass in front of me. In fact, I took one touch and that was to put it in the net. I think it just it happens every now and again where you get players who complement each other. In the midfield, there wasn't really anybody that went through people and were aggressive. We had Alec MacDonald, Gordon Smith, myself and Tommy McLean, and David Cooper on the left. We had players that could get forward. Gordon Smith was great at getting forward into the forward areas from midfield. Alec MacDonald was very industrious. My trademark was my passing. And to me, we had by far the best centre forward in the game at that time, Derek Johnson. So at the back we were very strong as well. So overall it was a very strong side we had.
But it's not just the players involved who have favourite memories, of course. Andy Cameron is one of the club's best-known supporters. Rangers may have gone a goal down in the 1987 League Cup final, but it's a match Andy will always remember.
It's the only game I've ever been at that I thought neither team deserved to lose it. It was a real... And ever since then, I've never liked a penalty shootout. But the 3-each game was... Davy Cooper's free kick, when he took it, I was right behind it. I was at that other end of the ground. And if there hadn't been a net there, that ball would have finished up in Rutherglen.
Roberts is dictating things. That's brilliantly struck by Davy Cooper.
I always remember Cooper in later years. Davy was a lovely guy, and he says he'd been a Scotland trip, and Jim Layton says, I got a finger to it, and Davy Cooper says, "I on the way out."
Jimmy Nichols' header. There's Fleck. Durant's header to McCoist. There's Durant, a great chance for Rangers, and that was magnificent. Far post cross, Walker caught in two minds. Here's a great chance for Hewitt. Yes! Now McKimmie stepping away from Cooper. Joe Miller back to Bet. Towards Faulkner! Willie Faulkner's header and Aberdeen are ahead. Bet's header, there's no one up for Aberdeen. They're all back defending as Nicholl returns it. Roberts with the header. There's Ian Durant and Fleck.
Extra time, you're saying, it's the first goal of the winner. It's as if you put the jackets down, and it goes to the full period of extra time, and it's penalties. And you shouldn't get through that. It's bad enough for the players. They're involved. They're on the pitch. You're sitting there like this, and the Aberdonians are going like, shoes. If I get this late train, it's going to cost me an extra £3.
If Durant scores, Rangers are the winners. There will be no need for any other kick. Perfectly taken by Durant. Rangers have won the Scotland League Cup after a match packed full of drama.
The Graham Souness era had begun. Dramatic changes were underway at Ibrox and unprecedented success just around the corner. Willie Henderson's career was long over, of course, and Gordon Smith's was also drawing to a close. But both have their own memories of another famous cup victory, the Scottish Cup final of 1964.
My father had taken me to the semi-final, Dundee against Kilmarnock, and Dundee had hammered Kilmarnock 4-0, and they were a really good side. So I had begged them to take me back to the final. I wanted to go to the final. I thought Dundee were a great team, and I went to the final, and it was all Rangers practically. Bert Slater in goals was fantastic, and we thought we weren't going to get any goals. We went into the last 10 minutes, and we got 4. Rangers scoring 3 of them, and it just came alight. And I always remember just being I was about 9 years old at the time. Just the fantastic atmosphere of Hampden, the crowd being there, and as I say, just seeing all those players who, mainly ones, a lot of the Rangers ones are just like television stars to you. You've seen him in the flesh, the Wally Hendersons and Jim Baxters and Ralphie O'Briens, Davy Wilsons, and it was a tremendous Rangers team.
The longer the game progressed, it was to turn out that it was going to be the Bert Slater Cup final, although Rangers were going for the treble at the time. And I think it's one of the greatest displays of goalkeeping that I've ever seen. And I think it's great that we actually finished up by beating them 3-1 that day, because it just shows you how good the Rangers was to eventually come out winners and win the treble that year.
20 minutes to go as Henderson takes his corner kick. Miller, and a goal! Goal by Miller with 20 minutes to go. Poor Slater, after performing all these heroics, a picture of dejection. There's the Rangers team. They've won the cup 17 times, and they've gone ahead with 20 minutes to go. Well, let's see how Dundee fight back. They had a feeling that a goal of that kind might decide it. And here's Cameron's offside. I've said he's offside. And it's a goal! A beautiful goal by Cameron. Right on the rebound. Oh, what a lovely goal to make it 1 goal each. It's Henderson on the left wing. It's a goal, yes, and Miller has scored. I thought the ball was going over the bar. I make it half a minute to go. Gilzine, left half Stewart. And Henderson on the Brand, with Henderson taking it. It's Henderson on the Brand, on to Wilson. And there's going to be another one. Yes, it's a third one. Well, this is the most fantastic, unbelievable cup final I've ever seen.
There will never be, in my own mind, a team any better than that team. I mean, there has been tremendous teams over the years at Ibrox, and each player will have their own memory of how great their team was, and the supporters at different times will have good memories of different teams. But in my own mind, I feel that was the greatest Rangers team that's been.
The treble was achieved again in 1976 and 78, with Colin Jackson a member of both squads. He sees similarities between his team and the next Rangers treble-winning side of 1993.
We had a team that did trebles. They did well in Europe as well, in 78, 79. A good run. We thought we were going to win the European Cup that year. A wee bit unfortunate maybe. But the 92 team reminded me very much of our team. There were 1 or 2 excellent players in the team, but everyone was a good player. There's nobody would get carried. They were all playing well. They all played for each other, and they played as a unit, which is the most important thing in a successful team. You've got guys who graft and you get guys who create, and the combination's got to be right. And that team was it was so close to doing the European Cup, and it was done in a manner of both good football and hard work. It was a good combination to have. It's probably the manager's perfect dream.
And the dream was to come true for Walter Smith and John Brown with a cup final win over Aberdeen.
We had an exceptional season with the domestic scene and a good run in Europe. And to do the treble that day was a bit special. More so than I watched a Rangers team of the 70s do 2 trebles, and what a thrill you got from supporting the team then, and to get an opportunity to maybe do it yourself. Because back in '89, we lost a treble last day of the season against Celtic in the cup final. So it was a chance to maybe finish the season in a high, having had a great season, for the team to finish in a high. Because if we lost it, it would have been a big dampener on the season.
So too did Brian Grant. That's McCall. A chance on here for Murray. The deflection and the opening goal for Rangers. Bounced on by Hateley. This is Durant. Hateley again. Strong play by Wright. Hateley's clear. This is danger for Aberdeen. And a magnificent goal from Mark Hateley. The second for Rangers. And sheer delirium among these Rangers players. And there's the scene the Rangers supporters were waiting for. Rangers have done it again.
A day that every member of that treble-winning squad will always remember. But every championship and every cup win is special in its own way, especially if the crucial victory comes against Celtic, Rangers' oldest and greatest rivals. It's not at all surprising that so many players and fans alike list a victory over Celtic as their favourite Rangers memory. Nor is it surprising how many suggest the 1970 League Cup final. Colin Jackson played that famous day and, as always, relished the Old Firm encounter.
I think any Old Firm game is a big occasion. Even a league game as opposed to a cup final, there's not a great deal of difference. You go down in history as the guy who made the tackle, you go down in history as the numpty who obviously made a mess of it. So one way or the other, you're on edge right from the start. The good bit about it is getting on the park. The build-up is in the dressing room. Once you're on the park, you tend to relax a bit because you're out there, you do your job then. That's different. So you always hope to get a good break of the ball first time round. I think that tends to be relatively important. If you get stuffed the first time round, the pressure's on you to do something the second time. But if you manage to get a good tackle in, as a defender early on, it settles you quickly.
In the morning of the game, they took a poll of captains in the First Division, and there was a general feeling that Rangers would lose. They hadn't really done anything up to that stage. Willie Waddle had taken over as manager. He'd started to get the team moving, but Celtic were still hot favourites. And then we heard that John Gregg was out, Ronnie McKinnon was captain, and Waddle had gambled on Derek Johnson, who was only 16 at that time. So that was a colossal gamble on his part.
Yeah, Big Derek was an unknown quantity to all the players in the team. He'd arrived there, big raw laddie, as I say, from Dundee. He'd hardly been in the door, and then all of a sudden he's picked to play. We hardly knew his name. We know his name now.
I can remember the goal vividly. I can remember Willie Johnson galloping down the right wing. It was a cold October day, and then throwing one of these typical Johnson crosses into the box. And I remember Derek Johnson rising between Billy McNeil and Jim Craig, and I was directly in line with the ball as it left his head. And I can remember seeing Evan Williams' outstretched hand only maybe 6 inches away from it, and the ball lodging in the back of the net, and the whole place just went wild, as you would expect. And as I say, that'll live with me forevermore. Not just because it was my first Old Firm game, because it was so important to Rangers. It really did kick off Waddle's revolution of Rangers, I would say.
I was probably directly in line, right behind him, about 60 yards away. Across the nose, a nosebleed across the halfway line these days, you know. But I saw the ball coming over, and I did see the three people, sort of, as in one. But it wasn't until the ball had actually hit the back of the net, because I couldn't really see the ball going into the net. And then, of course, a massive roar, because it was up at the Rangers' end, traditional Rangers' end. So it couldn't have happened in a better place at a better time.
I can remember trying to jump over the wall to run onto the pitch when the referee blew the final whistle, and I cut my thumb. And so that's a kind of standing memory as well. But I waited outside to get the players' autographs, and I think it was Alec MacDonald was coming out, and I ran over to him and I said, "Could you sign my autograph?" And he just walked by me. So I gave him a bit of stick about that when I actually played with Alec.
It was my first winner's medal, and it was enjoyable just to get a medal. But it was only when the supporters, they said, "Oh, it's great, we've had 4 to 5 years of nothing," and then it did start to mean a bit more than just an ordinary cup final.
That was no ordinary final, nor was the final of the Scottish Cup 6 years later, when the same Derek Johnstone scored after just 45 seconds against Hearts. And since the match had kicked off a little early, that meant he'd scored before 3 o'clock.
Playing with Gregg. In goes Johnson, it's here! 20 seconds. Now McKean with it. Jackson just behind there, and McDonald let fly. That's it. Eric McDonald makes it 2-0 for Rangers on the half-time whistle. Kenny Ed. Greg mucked it up easily. Now McLean to Greg. Here's Martin Henderson in the open. Greg coming through. Henderson with it. There's McKean with Brown. Tending to overdo it. Good running by McKean though. That's it. Derek Johnston, the third goal.
Alec MacDonald, Colin Jackson, John Gregg, Tommy McLean with a great spirit about us. And the games we went out, we know we'd go and win the games. And it's a great feeling of the confidence to go out and do that. And I said, just because we were there for a long time, playing together, and we were playing well at that time.
Derek Johnston's cup final goal had come early, but DJ had scored even earlier, just 7 days before, when the championship was won with his goal at Tannadice after just 21 seconds.
Rangers, with 23 games in a row without defeat, are poised to win the first ever Premier Championship. And a chance for them in the opening seconds. Derek Johnston, after 21 seconds, puts Rangers ahead.
Who would have believed that April afternoon in 1976 that 21 years later Rangers would be celebrating their 9th title in a row? The New Year victory over Celtic that nerve-wracking season was especially significant.
Albert's gone here with a genuine reputation as a set-piece specialist. And Celtic's wall is 5 strong. But Alberts gets it through! The hammer has torn Celtic apart!
George Alberts scored with a magnificent free kick at the Celtic end. But that was the day that the ugly duckling became a swan. Because Big Bo Anderson, he used to run as if he tied his watch onto his ankles, you know. He had a really ungainly gait. I couldn't get that out. And then, all of a sudden, that last 5 or 10 minutes, it became a swan. Graceful, 2 cracking goals. His run for both of the goals was magnificent.
It looks like Hannah's gone into the back line. It has, yeah. Well, here's Alberts, and here's Anderson! Rangers back in front, 7 minutes to go. Suicide for Celtic. There's another break on here. Can Rangers really wrap it up? It's Eric Bo Anderson again. Sensational appearance from the substitute, and no wonder Walter Smith embroils himself in the celebration. He has taken the game totally away from Celtic. It's 3-1.
And what I remember about that game as well, having watched it on television when I come home from a pantomime, was Walter Smith's reaction. The pressure on Walter Smith in that year, I think that was a 9-in-a-row year. The pressure on Walter must have been tremendous, and you don't realise it until you see him when that third goal went in. That was it. He was the same as us. That was it. They can't come back, you know. What I've got to say to Rangers fans about Walter Smith is in 1974, I never thought that we would equal Celtic's 9 in a row. We did, and it was down and a great deal to Walter Smith. But his dignity after a game, after a defeat, was always, to me, outstanding. On that occasion, the pressure was such that it erupted when we went 2-1 up. But we went 3-1 up, that was it, the game was finished. And he was doing that, yes! He wasn't doing it to the Celtic supporters, he was just letting the Rangers fans see that he felt the same as them, you know, because he's a Rangers fan.
For over 100 years, Rangers and Celtic have been Scottish football's big two. Matches between the two certainly haven't always been great games, but rarely have they been uneventful and never insignificant. It is still a match every player and every fan wants to win, badly.
One of my earliest, in fact, my first ever Old Firm game, I was sitting with my uncle, and Rangers won 4-1, and Johnny Hubbard scored a hat-trick. Came from South Africa, lovely man. That was the first day I realised that there was Rangers and Celtic, because you had a crowd at either end. Normal crowds, all right, there was a separation, but you could be standing next to a Hibs fan or something like that in other games, but not in a Celtic game.
I always felt good against Celtic. I don't know why, but I always felt good. I always felt I was going to score, and I had a good record against them. I scored quite a few. I remember one game, New Year's Day, we beat them 4-1, and Harold Davis had a magnificent game, and I think I scored 2 in that game. But Harold Davis was absolutely magnificent. He was man-mounted.
8 minutes gone. Brand. And Kennedy gives away the first corner. Yes, that's it, right, Scott, taking the first corner. Davis has it. And it's a goal, yes. That's a Celtic defender on the way, but it's Davis who opened the scoring. Centre half McKinnon. Right back Shearer. Rangers moving up into attack. Yes, Davis, the right half. Celtic backpedaling for all their worth. Davis coming right in. And Miller, the start. There's a chance for Wilson, and it's goal! And it was Davis who built up that one, and Wilson was the man who smacked it in to make it Rangers 4, Celtic 0, with about 9 minutes to go.
35 years on, Davy Wilson's memories of that Old Firm victory are as vivid as they were the morning after. And Colin Jackson has no problems recalling a sensational Old Firm winner from 1980.
Willie Johnson had taken a quick throw in, and Alec, or Squeaky as we affectionately called him, hit it first time, left foot. I was thinking, oh, this could go anywhere, and it just went a rocket in the far side of the net. From about, he was well outside the box, I think he was 25 yards out or something. It was going there, or it was going up in the stand somewhere, but it was just one of these shots, and he caught it clean as a whistle, and it went straight, and it went in that rocket. I don't know who was the most surprised, the rest of us or him. But it was again, it was a smashing goal.
That's Davy Provan trying to make life as difficult as possible for Willie Johnston. The referee waving Provan back. Chance for Miller. That is a superb goal from Alec Miller. His first of the season. It came from a throw-in from Willie Johnston. He struck it beautifully on the full volley with that left foot. And you can see that Pat Bonner hadn't an athlete.
For a Rangers fan, there's no such thing as a bad goal against Celtic, but some, of course, live longer in the memory than others. The winning goal in the 1966 Scottish Cup final replay against Celtic has gone down in Rangers history, easily erasing the memory of a poor first match on the Saturday.
It was a typical slog. Celtic were probably the better team on the Saturday. But in the replay, it was very, very up, down, up, down. The game was very difficult. Didn't look as if anyone was going to score except by something special. And that was something special from Kai Johansson.
Almost halfway through the second half. Still no scoring. They have Greg. Certainly Celtic go deep in defence. Chalmers to Hughes. When he gets going, he's difficult to stop. And there's his shot. Ball's out. Well, according to Mr. Wharton, it was out. Inside forward Johnston. Well, I don't know how McLean missed that one. And somebody's foot stopped that one. And there's a goal by Johansson. Oh, there it is. Johansson, the first Danish player ever to appear in a cup final. And he is celebrated by scoring the first goal.
Actually, George McLean should have scored, but Dandy, as usual, slipped up, missed it, it went through his legs, and Kai came steaming in. And it went like a bullet into the net. I'll never forget that day. Kai has scored more own goals than he had goals. And it was a surprise. It was more of a surprise to Kai than anyone else, I can assure you.
Every Rangers fan is a historian of sorts, but some take it more seriously than others. David Mason is not alone in recalling the events of an August afternoon in 1988 with absolute clarity.
It was a big game again for us. Celtic had won the championship in the previous year, and Graham Souness had spent a lot of money to try and transform Rangers. I can remember going into that game and not being overly confident about it. We hadn't had some great results up to that stage.
There's McAvenny. Took off doing well. There's Stevens. Very confident on the ball. Dangerous moment though, the ball coming across goal for Butcher's header. That's off the post, there's McAvenny! Celtic are in front. Joy for Frank McAvenny with 5 minutes on the clock, and the Celtic end goes wild. Ray Wilkins will take the free kick. Goff is in the box once again. So is Butcher. Back to Brown. Blocked by McCarthy. There's McCoist. Deadly finishing by Ali McCoist. 10 minutes gone. Rangers are back on terms. And that was top-class striking.
And then after that, we just really took control of the game. And the outstanding moment for me in the match was a goal from Ray Wilkins. He took a throw in from Gary Stevens on the far side at the Celtic end of the ground, and Ray Wilkins hit it on the volley, and that one just exploded behind Ian Andrews in the Celtic goal. It was an enormous strike, huge significance for us. And of course, I think it was the killer punch for Celtic, and we went on to score 5, and could have and should have probably scored the 7 that we so desperately wanted.
It's headed on by Rogan. Here's Durant retrieving it for Rangers. McCoist nods it on, an awkward one for Andrews. And the ball is in the net. It's a goal for Rangers. Durant takes the credit. And it's a disaster for Ian Andrews. Well, that coming about in the most surprising fashion as Ian Durant retrieved the ball. It certainly was a very difficult ball played in. It was Ali McCoist who must get the credit. It was his back header, dipping under the bar, misjudged by Andrews. Drinkle didn't touch him. And McCoist gets the credit. To Walters. Walters now facing McCarthy. Getting in a fine cross. Kevin Drinkle. Walters to Drinkle. It's 4-1 to Rangers. Well, the quality of the goals has been remarkable. Except perhaps Rangers' third. Kevin Drinkle relishing this moment to the full. White judging the fight well. There's Brown. Aiken in trouble as Ali McCoist. Down he goes this time at Walters. Mark Walters makes it 5.
Graham Souness was on the bench. Come on, slowed the game down, I know that the guys on the bench, including McCoy's, were urging him on to go for the 7. We could have done it, we were in so much control of the game. I remember even hearing Tommy Burns the next day on television saying that he sat praying in the box that it would stop at 5.
Do you know what it is? It's a rivalry between the two teams, but it's also all your relatives and your friends that support the other side. You go into your work or you go home the next day or that night and you phone them, you go, how about that, eh? And you know that if you get beat, you don't phone, they phone. Let them pay for the phone call, they've won. And it's, how do you like it, you know? And it's all that kind of stuff. You go on, if you beat them. The 5-1 game, I remember going to my pal and singing, fail, the Celts. And he laughed at it after about an hour. But it was one of these, it's that kind of occasion, you know? And I love the atmosphere at an Old Firm game. I love when your team scores and the whole place erupts and you look at the other end and it's as if somebody's dropped dead, you know? It's incredible. I remember getting doings off a Celtic and you get into your work, you know, the next day and your toolbox is painted green and white, you know, things like that. And that's the kind of thing that happens.
For all that the Old Firm remains one of the great rivalries of not just Scottish but world football, Rangers-Aberdeen matches have developed an extra edge over the last 20 years or so. Their big match meetings have been frequent and often hugely significant.
It all stemmed from Aberdeen's dominance at that period when Fergie was the manager. And he was a real winner, and that's why he's been successful, you know. So at that time, you had that real competitor, and Willie Miller. I mean, Willie's a lovely guy, but competitor, him and Big McLeish. And lucky man, Willie Miller. I mean, remember we're going to take the rule that if you argued with the referee, you're moved back 10 yards? Willie would have played all his home games in Norway.
After going a goal down in the 1979 League Cup final, Rangers equalised through a deflected Alec MacDonald shot. And then in the dying moments, the winner was scored by an Aberdonian, playing for Rangers.
We're virtually 3 minutes into injury time. McLean with us, all the big men up. Derek Johnson, Colin Jackson. There's Jackson going for it, sir.
I knew it was a goal as soon as it left my head. I did, it was just one of these feelings you get. It's like, there's no goal you're going to save this. You know, it's got to be time up. You're running about. Aaron McDonald's on the shoulders at this time. He's primed up and he's sitting on top of me. It was a bit special because of when it happened. It's kind of Roy the Rover stuff. You think, scored a goal in the last minute, do you think it was in the movies or whatever? But yeah, it was a bit special, yeah. Tom McLean took a free kick. I saw it early, to be fair, and I managed to get in behind Alec McLeish, I think it was. He'd probably, given 3 or 4 years later on in his career, wouldn't have let me do that, but he was still a young kid, and I managed to just get away from him. He was marking me and get a fairly free header, and it just stuck it right in the corner where it should be.
Dundee United too were an excellent side as the 1970s gave way to the 80s. After a goalless draw in the 1981 Scottish Cup final, Davy Cooper put Rangers ahead in the replay. Cook, one of 3 players brought into the side that night by John Gregg.
Yeah, he made a few changes. Certain personnel came in and they transformed a lacklustre first performance into a tremendous performance. Individual performances from Davy Cooper, John McDonald, Jimmy Bett were tremendous that day, and then you can say it was a team performance as well. But individually there were some great performances.
Cooper playing it in. Bobby Russell makes it 2, and that really was a wicked free kick from Davy Cooper. Good turn from Cooper. McDonald wants it inside the fullback. John McDonald, and he's made it.
That was great. That's my one and only cup final goal, so that's a great memory. It was a free kick over on the left-hand side. Derek Johnson and a few of the bigger guys made a run to the near post, and Davy played the ball right to the back, and I had scored it in and half-volleyed it into the net. So again, when I was walking back to get the acclaim from the players, Big Tom Forsyth got me from behind and gave me one of these bear hugs and nearly took the breath out of me. But yeah, it was good to score that day.
Mark Hateley probably said much the same after the historic league decider with Aberdeen on the last day of the 1991 season. Rangers were going for 3 in a row, and it was winner take all.
From being in a position where we led the championship for much of the race, we then found ourselves behind and needing to win at Ibrox. But we really took the match by the scruff of the neck from the outset. I can remember Van der Ven had a great chance early on, and Hans Hielhuis had a great chance with a header which he put over when he may have scored at any other time. And I think that was probably the final signal to the Aberdeen fans that this was not going to be their day.
Kimmy's clearance. Walters wants to bring the ball down and take on Wright. Going for the early cross, there's Hateley! It's a magnificent goal for Rangers! 5 minutes from half-time and Ibrox erupts. Set up here by Walters. Well, good decoy runs made there, notably by Gary Stevens. That ball flighted across it. This is Mark Hateley at his very best. And what a novel! Hateley getting up again. At least didn't follow him that time. Here's Connor. Bringing it up the line for Booth. The layup was intended for McKimmie, but he's released Johnston. Hateley waits in the middle. He will look to be offside. Well, the referee's allowed the goal. And Rangers are 2 in front. Well, here was Johnston. Now Hateley appeared to me to go into an offside position behind Alec McLeish. As the shot was released by Johnston, Watt couldn't hold it. It bounced away from him, and Hateley was first to react to turn the ball into the net. Over it goes. And still the Rangers defence coping well with all these Aberdeen attacks. Every eye now on the referee as the ball is out of play, waiting to see if Brian McGinley will bring this match to an end and make it formally Rangers Championship. There it is! Rangers have won the championship.
The whole match turned on a tremendous cross from Mark Walters, far on the left, swung right over to Mark Hateley, and you never really felt that Aberdeen were going to come back from that. The elation in the crowd and among the players was awesome that day. Walter Smith had just taken over the reins a few games beforehand, so it was of huge significance to us, to Walter Smith, and clearly kicked off his almost unbeaten run in the championship after that.
It's always good to see how many Rangers players of the past are Rangers fans today, and they have their favourites too, of course.
Oh, Ali's top of my list. Ali knows that, because I would come here and watch Ali himself playing against anybody. Ali's superb. Ali enjoys the game. He bubbles over with enthusiasm, and to see him during the game, the thing that strikes me with Ali, he loves to score, but he smiles. And you don't see many players doing that nowadays. In our day, we would have a good laugh on the field. Ralph O'Brien, myself, Jimmy Miller. But you don't see that nowadays. It's too tense. Maybe it's too much money in the game. But I like to see players smile.
I think when I look back over the years, you would have to say that Paul Gascoigne, even allowing for the small time that he was at Ibrox, would surely rank along with the most gifted and talented players that has ever wore a blue jersey.
Here's Gascoigne now, can he produce some magic? Still it's Gascoigne! Oh yes! A tremendous goal by Gascoigne! It's been very evenly balanced. Here's Gascoigne now, pushing forward, showing great determination! Oh, he's done it again! It's unbelievable! It's Gascoigne who's going to take this one, and Gascoigne has already scored from the penalty spot. This for the hat-trick in the championship!
The contribution that he made to the club that year And for to run that length of the pitch that he did, for a guy that's not supposed to be too fit, and score that goal against Aberdeen, will always stand out in my head as one of the greatest moments that I watched in the history of Glasgow Rangers Football Club.